Hmm. Hey man,
What's up, Steve?
how you doing?
I'm doing well, man. You got a great background. It beats my fake plant in the corner.
Yeah, right. This feels good. It's almost like I'm in a sauna. I do my best work in the sauna, like a
I
man's
always
doing.
thought you were.
Totally.
You just ruined it for me.
That'd be pretty incredible. Just to test my resiliency. Can you work all day in a sauna?
Yeah. Well, I just figured it was off.
Oh, alrighty. Well, I'm not sure how many people are going to show or not, right? Kind of the nature of Instagram Live, but I'm going to post this on my account for people to be able to tune in when they can. And yeah, man, I'm stoked to be able to have a conversation with you. You know, partly this is selfish, just so we can carve out 30 minutes uh, for us to be able to chat and hang out with our busy lives. Are you there? Aaron, I lost you, buddy. Hey, there you are.
Hey, sorry, kicked me out for some reason.
That's okay. Cool. All I said before you disappeared was selfishly, I just kind of wanted to connect with you for a half hour, and with our busy schedules, this is a good way to catch up.
Seriously, yeah. Well, I'm with you. It's been too long, and I could use a little Steve medicine.
So
So let's go for
cool.
it.
Well, great, man. Well, thanks for being here. Yeah, I guess let's just kind of jump in, and I'll just tell you kind of what when I think about you, you know, kind of what I feel and what's alive for me. You know, I have these conversations with men that I'm inspired by, inspired from. You know, and you're right at the top of the list, man. You know, when I think about you, it's a story of like leaps of faith. It's a story of believing in yourself, like and really going for it, and then having a beautiful outcome that's like winning and in the process of winning. So I'm curious to, you know, hear your story, you know, from your maybe as far back as your accident, if you feel comfortable with that, and then, you know, fast forward us to, you know, how you continually have dusted yourself off and stayed in the game and leaned into it, and then how does it feel to win, and also, you know, how does it feel to stand in that winning, right? Because we all want to win, but then all of a sudden there comes times when whew, that's also an interesting medicine too of winning and feeling like a winner. So maybe you can kind of take us through our journey and see where this leads.
Yeah. Wow. You know, it's funny because I don't know how often I feel like I'm winning, but that's part of my own process, you know,
Yeah,
as a dad. And I'm in it right now. I got an 8-year-old and a 2-year-old. And not to go into what I'm creating as a story of like, oh God, it's so hard having 2 kids. But that is my real story right now, or that's what the experience feels like.
yeah,
Um, doesn't feel like a lot of winning right now. And but it's interesting that you bring it up because I've been kind of sitting with this idea since we broached this idea of talking about this concept. And I've been sitting with this idea of what winning actually feels like. And and I'll get into your question. I'm kind of like, circumventing it a little bit, but to me, it feels like now the ability to hold through, the storm in the family and on a day-to-day basis. Like winning feels like not being triggered at breakfast on a random Tuesday morning. And, can I contain for the family, like for my wife and for the kids and all that like potential flurry.
Yeah.
And so winning feels like being able to like just hold that so, so so I can fulfill my own path of growing up, really. And so I guess going back, I could share my whole life story, and I feel like it's probably familiar to a lot of men that are trying to work through, you know, a sense of lack from childhood and shit that we didn't have, and maybe I'll speak from my own perspective. I'm not going to just project on all other men. The ways that I am now, the triggers that I have now, I know are because of the way I was parented, the dynamics in my home, um, and then of course these play off with that same lived experience for my wife. And her all the stuff that she brings from her childhood and her relationship with her parents and her dad and her mom. And I get all that. And what I'm sitting with so much now is I'm at a point now where I see it all clearly. I can almost like levitate above my own body when the shit's happening, you know? And the big question is, how do I do the right thing in that moment? Like, how do I hold it? Like, how do I just not be triggered? It sounds so unbelievably silly and stupidly simple, yet it's like, it's everything. And that's everything from like, Jesus, not like, don't get lost in like a scroll, or like, do you need to check the Bitcoin price again? Or can you just stay focused on a task? Like it's almost the same. Like there's that. It's like, don't bend to that, versus like, you don't have to bend to like a heightened emotion. Why is it so uncomfortable for me to be around big emotions? Um, so that's like the nitty gritty of what I'm in right now. And so if there's a winning, or if there's a celebration, well, there is a celebration. And you and I have talked over the years often about how easy it is for me personally to go into this shame cycle and beat myself up over being imperfect, right? Um, but there's something to celebrate in even being able to acknowledge what's happening and to observe what's happening and to know what you're even working on. And that's what I'm working on right now. And it always comes back with me to like, what are the daily, not just like wake up in the morning and do this thing and think your day is off and running, but like the daily practices that I come back to during the day, whether it be breath, whether it be meditation, whether it be like some different things that I'm playing with right now. But then the question is like, can I keep it going with all the, we live a bit of we've had a lot of moving. We've been in different countries the last 5, 6, 7 years, right? Lots of different homes, different school paradigms. Then these projects that I've been building and kind of bringing my family around the world. So to be able to have a semblance of consistency in my own world, so that I can show up and create that and contain it for my family. That's the process that I'm on. Um, and so when you bring up, I don't know if we want to pause and kind of like circle back, but when you bring up I guess the resiliency piece, that is something that maybe that there is a celebration there too, in waking up every day and staying true to that like North Star. Like I know that's where I'm going, you know? Like the North Star is being really present with my 8-year-old, and I know he just wants to play with dad. And I know how powerful it is for him to grow up feeling that experience of like dad was there with me, and he was just like, I was his world in that moment, you know? And very often I don't feel like I've done a great job of that at all when I'm so in my head with all that I kind of carry as a dad? How am I going to earn more? How am I going to like live these dreams? How am I going to make this life happen? You know, even though I know too, while that's happening, I come back to like, well, does that cycle end? Like, what's the amount of money that you need to earn for you to get out of your head and be present with your family? You know,
Right.
um, that is my world right now. That's where like where and so much of my energy kind of like goes back and forth between like making the life stuff happen, banging out the work, doing a better job at creating the healthy boundaries of like it's work time now, which is so easy for it to just bleed in the life that I've kind of carved of like moving towards online and creating a lot of video content and offering that world and kind of opening up my family experience and my home and the food that we eat. I'm really trying to figure out the what feels right for me and my family in that like it's a messy thing to play with when the phone's out and we're videoing a lot and I'm integrating them into that world, and that's kind of like the high level picture of where everything's at. um, yeah.
Yeah, great. I mean, and there's like our internal experience and our internal world, right? And then there's the external world. And I'm with you. Like there's, while we're playing this game out there and a big game out there, it's also like how do you show up to your son at the breakfast table? And often that's like the biggest trigger and the biggest difficult point, right? I totally hear that and feel that myself, man. And I can see myself getting incrementally better, but I would I'd love that to like make a quantum shift and be done with that. But I don't think life works that way, right? I mean, not
Mm.
only am I working on my stuff, but I'm also working on lineage things and Jamie's family lineage things and how that combines, and then right, two souls entering the world, and then having some agreement with me that I can't see. So, um, you know, on my good days, I have a little bit of grace for myself and have that extra half-second pause before I talk, and hold that gaze and that eye contact with my son or daughter or Jamie.
Mm.
And then on days that are not my best days, I don't have that, and I don't show up the way I want to. So I think that's beautiful for you to be able to share that and have the courage to share that and have that humility.
Yeah, you know, I can't imagine had had I not come to my first men's circle years back, which was here in Portugal, which I guess was, I take a step back because the first circle was with you.
Mm.
And that must have been, I don't know, 5, 6 years ago, I guess. And it set me on this path of exploring and giving language to all the stuff that I was starting to internalize as a young dad and as a young husband, a younger husband. Um, and it's been such an anchor to me. And it's been an interesting kind of arc of how I also look at this work, to where at the beginning, I think I thought it was going to be this fix. Like, I got to show up to this circle and talk about this stuff and figure out what I'm supposed to do, or like get it off my chest. And it makes me feel better. So I think that I'll show up better. Right. Yet even though like the things keep on happening, the hamster wheel, the sense of this, like, this hamster wheel coming back over and over again. So even growing through this lived experience of showing up with other men and being able to talk about this stuff, I've changed my perspective of kind of even how I enter this space. Like even talking right now with you, I'm interested in what I'm going to uncover in myself and what little nuggets I can uncover myself in a different way than at the beginning. I probably was even just learning how to be a good listener and not be in my own head so much. But what's been really at the top of my thought process, and I've been open with Carolina, my wife has brought this up a lot, is the lack that men have now in 2025 of having this like this initiation growing up, right? Of like this is how to be as you grow, like in these different transition periods, right? Where does it exist where, you know, our fathers, our grandfathers guide us on how to become men?
Yeah.
And if this exists, you know, in pockets of the world, where is it? And where can I explore it right now? Um, because this is something that I think that we must be yearning as men to recreate. And I would like I'm also searching for that for my own son. And perhaps, you know, the way that we get the best way right now we can do that is by, you know, showing up at that breakfast table. That's one way, I know. But there's got to be more ritual, more rites of passage, more ceremony that is woven into the daily work that we're doing, right? Beyond, of course, just modeling that, like, this is how, these are the things that you can do to show up to be a centered person in this world. But definitely, I'm two boys. So I'm going to speak from my own experience. This is how to show up and be a centered man in this world as you grow to become men. And that's a realm that I'm exploring a lot right now too, that I would love to explore more with you.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's beautiful. I mean, kind of the inquiry I'm in right now with my son in particular is how how can how can I model to like contribute and give first and understand that the law of reciprocity will come back to me tenfold,
Mm,
right? But how do I show up consistently, like contributing and giving and coming from that place? And how can he do the same? Right? And when you're littler, not everything's firing like an adult, so
mm,
that may not be your go-to. But I mean, I see it in this work, right? I mean, if more and more men would start from that place, just things would flow so much better, right? I mean, it really
mm,
boils it down to just like the simplest: how can I be useful? How can I be of contribution? And in that openness, I think magic
mm,
happens.
mm. Can I turn the mic back to you and ask you a question?
Yeah, totally.
Like, so what's your process, or what are some of your processes to that have worked for you to show up as, you know, the best Steve every day?
Yeah. Yeah. One is just what I said. How can I be the greatest contribution, the most useful right now? And what I'm learning and feeling lately is maybe I don't need to be attached to my preferences. I wake up in the morning and have a million different preferences, and then I'm attached to outcomes. Well, what if I want to do this or I want to do this, and what if I could just kind of set those aside and say, like, my greatest preference is to be of contribution and useful. What does my day look like? What's this situation look like? What's this outcome look like that's really in line with that? So, I mean, I think that's kind of what I'm in the inquiry in lately. And then I also need to have something that's either really physically tough, like sauna, cold plunge, hard workouts, surfing, dirt biking, something that like makes me feel alive and not comfortable,
Mm,
and really be able to like
mm,
fully feel that discomfort like in my body, and really be able to like connect with my essence more,
mm-hmm,
in a difficult situation, to where, when it feels like I'm under fire, with the family, with everyone needing something from me or having opinions or whatever, that I've already had a bigger challenge that morning than this particular
mm.
situation.
Yeah, yeah. Is there a dance that you do on days where that doesn't unfold, the surf or the sauna or the
Yeah.
lift? They do rely on another practice? Like, is it meditation? Do you hit the journal? What do you do on those potential off days to kind of stay
Yeah.
consistent?
Yeah, I mean, I can always like drop down and do 50 push-ups until my chest feels like it's going to explode, right? I mean, like I always
Mm-hmm.
have that, and like physically, like I have to do something, or else I feel like this caged animal.
Mm,
So that's
mm,
kind of my go-to. Um, but yeah, when stuff gets really, really, difficult, time seems to slow down. I can focus on my breathing. I can, literally like feel like in my back body instead of like leaning in and posturing, almost being like leaning back a bit, feel my feet on the floor and just focus on my breath and try not
mm.
to speak or react. And, I'm like everybody, there's some days that are shit,
Yeah,
man.
yeah. I mean, it's fun.
And
I feel my chest. Yeah,
Jamie will let me know that too, right? And
yeah,
that's like the relief valve is like all of a sudden, okay, like I see angry, upset,
yep,
woman, like okay, that's a signal to like okay, change something.
yeah, yeah. That's we share that experience for sure.
Yeah,
It's interesting. It makes me think, and I think about this so often, and I think so much about the environment. Like, how can I tweak the environment? Because it seems so unnatural that this is so hard, right? And very often, like at home, back in Texas, I mean, I'm in an Airbnb in the Algarve right now, and it's life follows you everywhere. Like the same dynamics. We plop down, we're here in like paradise. It's like really awesome. We have an ocean view here, but same dynamics are at play. And and I realize like very often the solution is like just to literally go outside and get out of the walls like that contain us. And it's like unbelievable sometimes we just open the door and take one step outside and all is okay. And so much like I ask myself so often, it's like, what do I do to just tweak the environment? Like sometimes I can't help but think of the life that you've carved out for yourself in Nicaragua that feels so flowy and so in line with the rhythms of nature. It's so much more wild, right?
yeah,
Which seems to suit you and your family and the yearning to almost just like be free and to feel alive, right?
yeah,
And I think that yearning, that's definitely in me. And I have my version of that right here. And thank God every single day we have been on the beach and we've had that experience. And there hasn't been a day where we haven't swum in the ocean. At least they have.
yeah,
And so I wonder, is a lot of this like environmental that we can kind of control as men, or co-create with our partners and with our families to set ourselves up for this success more, and remember that like we really aren't designed for the roof and these four walls and the AC and the heat and the like we're meant to feel that air and to be wild and outside. And I wonder how much of it is that. Which also goes to, which I think was a theme that we were going to get to, which maybe this is I think this is definitely something that guides me. It's like I'm still searching for that, like to like that right version of life. And so much of my exploration of food is to kind of like explore this human experience through reclaiming something that was once, I think, sacred to all of us. And that we lived this beautiful relationship with, like how we received our nourishment. And so like I live that through food, but there are so many ways that I want to explore, this realm of like, how do we reconcile being a human in 2025, where in a blip of human history, we were all just like living outside and feeling the rain on our heads and like feeling the earth under our feet.
yeah,
And where does that fit in with like being a dad now, in like understanding that is what our growing children are designed for and what we ourselves are designed for. And so there's it's endless the themes that we could kind of pursue, but like that's one that is so fascinating to me that I think we can play with in our own little ways.
yeah. No, you're exactly right, and I don't think a lot of people would argue with that and with that outlook on life. I think what I know about you is you are more courageous than most, and willing to take a leap, right? So if we know that, right, risking what's comfortable, what's risking what we have as men, right? You know, you got the stable job that's miserable, you have the house, you know, that works, you have your kids in school, you have all of these things. Like, how were you able to be courageous and radically take a leap that most people aren't willing to take? And what advice would you give to a man who's just in the grind, right, giving it hell, but like gripping with everything, but that at the same level could have his same finances and do something, live out in the country or move to a different country, or right, have a different
Mm,
way of life, take a risk on a business and live off of less while he, you know, explores his passion?
yeah.
What are your thoughts on that?
Well, you know, being a dad, becoming a dad is a massive rite of passage in and of itself. And early on as a dad, I started to define what my line in the sand was, like where I stood in this world and what my role as dad would be in that world. And the older I get, the more solidified that line in the sand feels. So much that I would move mountains to stand up for what I believe is right. And, and I'm trying to put this in a way that doesn't sound like I'm gaslighting those that haven't gotten there. And I don't not necessarily know why I've arrived to my own version of this truth, but I want to live a fucking extraordinary life. I don't know. Maybe it was that car accident. Maybe there was something there where my life was almost taken from me. And I know what it's like to sit in a hospital bed being told another 10 minutes and you would have bled to death. And realizing, whoa, like this is, I celebrated life before, but I see it a little bit differently now, you know, maybe after that experience. And I'm not going to fuck this up, you know, kind of like energy, I suppose. And so I started to believe also that anything is possible in this world. And I've gone down this realm of kind of like believing very much in this quantum existence to where you can even play with your own mind. I've done this where I've just arrived at like, it's so obvious that we can move our experience through our beliefs. Like it's so unbelievably obvious once you start playing with it,
Totally.
you know? And so once there's the hint of truth there, I know anything's possible. So I'm just going to go for it in this life. And, you know, I think what I'm experiencing right now is I have an understanding that I can have whatever life that I want. It's, it's the ongoing process of kind of, you know, have you ever read we've talked about the big leap, right? Um,
Yeah,
which
beautiful.
this is the one that talks about like the idea of like our upper limit, right? And like how we can kind of push through our own ability to have the capacity for, let's just say, more abundant wealth or abundant health or even happiness, right? And so some of these dynamics that play and that kind of come around in my own world are probably me and or my wife and I doing this together, like reaching our upper limit of like, do we even deserve to be this happy? Like, is it this easy that we can just manifest, you know, anything in this world? And we just need to believe it and then take some action and just let it unfold, right? And
Yeah.
so, but you know, if I were mentoring a young kid, for example, which I just had this really cool conversation with a young cook who wants to go off and experience this world as a cook, and um, you know, his mom and I were talking, and I offered to talk to him. Of course, it was like a 23 year old version of myself, And I brought this up, like I brought these concepts up to a 23-year-old. And if there's advice to anyone, it's like, what are we waiting for? Why not? Why not is the question. It's like, why not? What are you afraid of? Like leaving your job? What's the worst that could happen? Like you're not going to figure it out. You're not going to figure out how to feed your family. Of course you are. Like you're a dad. You're not going to let your kids starve. Like you're going to figure it out. And so like once we like, and I don't know how to play with this or guide others in this process other than it's all fucking possible. You just have to decide. Like you can recreate anything you want in an instant if you once you decide, but you have to decide. And I talk about this with food. It's like, I can't cook the way you do. You're a chef. It's like bullshit. It's all so easy. You just have to decide this is who you are. And when I speak about, this stuff with families that are trying to kind of just like own making real food and just like having this like real life, with real stuff that they get to feed their kids that like smells good and they get to touch it and they involve their kids. I know you're living it. It's like, just decide that that's what you want. And
Yeah.
then what a gift to our kids to model to them. Like you just get to decide, like this life, you get to decide.
Yeah.
It's not, I hope to get this job someday, or I hope that I get lucky. You just decide. And, but part of that decision, I know, and like we can go on forever, we can go for hours, Steve, is
Yeah.
like, is that surrendering to like some of the specifics? And that is a really cool, and if there's another thing that I'm like really excited about that I find myself more easily just like being okay with, it's like, I don't know exactly how this is going to happen, but I'm ready to sign up for like the thing that kind of like falls from the sky or whatever it might be. And over these things just keep on unfolding. But that doesn't
Yeah.
mean like we were talking about before, doesn't mean it just like you're there one day, because like this is a lifelong exercise, right? Of these like
Oh,
little
totally.
tests
It's
and
just
the
a
like it's
different
yeah.
flavor of problems.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and the lifelong is like it's every day. Like, a couple months ago, I felt like I was in this literal like months long portal where every day was another like synchronicity, another like interesting opportunity getting kind of like dropped in front of me. And it was easy to be like, oh my God, I'm in the portal. It's all just happening. And then interesting tests kind of fall through. It's like, oh, it's on me to keep on growing as a man, to be able to like hold still even through all the like these interesting highs and not getting too caught up in story of like it's all happening. And
Yeah.
so the path for me as a man is it's the steadiness. And it doesn't mean that I'm not allowed to be emotional, because I am. I've got big feelings, Steve. But to be still when I needed to be still, but
Yeah.
to allow the laughter to be loud, to also to speak loud to the world, and to shout things from the mountaintop when I feel the urge to yell, and to be to be that person as well, and not shy back to like, oh my God, like what are people going to think of me? What are the people going to think of this guy? He's got a big mouth, where that's been my story for far too long. Um, yeah,
Yeah.
interesting,
That's beautiful.
interesting ride we've got as men.
Totally. And what I'm hearing too is, it's that concept that David Data talks about, that like a man needs to be always leaning into his edge, whatever his edge looks like. And I know me personally, if I'm not leaning into my edge, that's like the worst out of me, right?
Mm.
All of a sudden, right? You can start drinking too much coffee or have one extra beer or, right, whatever. There's like things start creeping in that aren't like of me, of God, of my biggest purpose. And that's fine. But when I notice those things, right, starting to be more tempting or like, you know, creeping, I notice that I'm not leaning fully into my edge. And what I hear you doing and what I know about you is the last couple years for sure, there's been a guy who's been like leaning into his edge almost like to your detriment, right? Like
Yeah.
really having to like strengthen the wires, but like that leaning into the edge uh is what I'm hearing. Yeah. And what's the inquiry for someone who is not doing leaps of faith and isn't leaning into his edge and that is comfortable and coasting? What do you think the medicine is for that guy who looks at that and says like that just feels like a more difficult path and doesn't feel worth it?
Hmm. Well, if the guy is comfortable coasting and that's his path, so be it, I
Yeah.
suppose. But
Yeah. Yeah.
like if that guy
Yeah.
inside like really wants something else and is staying safe, um, I do a little more of what you're doing, and it's a funny thing. I know that it's borderline cheesy to go to something like cold therapy and get into cold water, but
Right.
little shit like that, like really stirs
Yeah.
us men in particular, I think, and that was one of my experiences getting into the ice the first time 5 years ago back here as well was a big opening that I had to where the versions of discomfort for me I had experienced. It was like hiking to base camp, of Mount Everest back in the day. It was really hard, which is laughable that's base camp. That's not like the hikers don't even start yet. It's like, and that's so hard, you know? Or like the version of a really hard workout, but nothing like that to confront my own self for 2 minutes in that cold.
Yeah.
And I might as well share that experience since we're on it, because I think Rafa was probably like 3 years old, 3.5 years old at the time, and being guided before we got in, we were asked to set an intention for why would we do this? Why would we go into this discomfort? And it was Rafa. Like, there's so much there with my first son. And I get in there and I close my eyes in this like bowl of ice with 7 other German guys. And it's all quiet. And I hear this whisper of Rafa in my ear as if he's literally inside me. And he's saying, I love you, daddy. I love you, daddy.
Mm.
And in what felt like 5 more seconds, 2 minutes had gone by after just holding on like into that. Like my heart is on Rafa right there. And if that's an example of what's possible, in terms of like pushing that edge, like there's an example. Like you want to get out of your comfort zone. You want to feel what it is to be alive in this world and to explore what we're capable of and what our capacity is as men. Like I think there are places like that where we can go.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. I think if a man's not doing that, this path is actually more fun. I don't think it's any more difficult than like trying to numb and trying to escape like the monotony and the boredom and like the just the desperateness of that gripping and of that monotony. Yeah, I mean that's at least
That's probably,
that's what
yeah,
that's what I've experienced, and we know where that leads, right? It leads to like disease, it leads to sickness. I mean, it's just you
yeah.
name it. So,
Yep.
okay,
That's better said. That's way better said, Steve. It's so true. It's so fun. This is so
yeah,
fun
yeah,
to get off the couch. Like, do we like another like how many hours of and look, I love my sports. Like, how many hours is my childhood and my 20s that I watch like endless Celtics games and Red Sox
totally,
games, like
totally.
hours and hours. It's like, okay, I can just watch the highlights now. It's fine. 3 minutes and I'm done.
With that,
To feel a
with
lot
that,
to
or watching it
like,
like some Netflix adventure show about people that aren't living as big a life. It's
yeah,
like there's not much to watch. Like
yeah,
appreciate that, but we're gonna turn that
yeah,
off. Like
yeah.
that's a little bit
And
boring.
this isn't to say it's not to say that if you've got your like tribe, in your town, and you like this life, like you're cool where you're at. Like I'm not gonna tell that dude like you got to go do this and you got to shake up your life. Like, and we know that we're talking to the ones that like just want something else, and they're and if there's an offering, it's like us men sharing this with more, maybe more openly, and not keeping it to ourselves, like these containers that we're in.
Yeah.
More inviting more guys in, because we know that most of those guys pop in the cans of Pringles or like another shitty beer, you know, and like are they know they're numb inside. We know it, like we know it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, to those dudes, like there's a really exciting adventure ahead once you dip your toes in the water a little bit. It doesn't mean that it gets easier, but you're right. Like man, it's so fun. Man, it's
Yeah.
so fun.
Beautiful, man. Well, we've gone over time as expected with you and I. I mean, we could literally chat for the next couple days here, and keep it
Yeah.
going. Anything left unsaid? Any way that if someone wants to check out your work, like they can support you or check in and get in your world?
Yeah, follow along on Instagram. You know, I'm working with this amazing woman behind the scenes to build this platform. We're working on actually a project that we're going to launch next month, which is exciting. And so follow me along on Instagram. Follow Steve along because
Thank
he's
you.
up to amazing things. And I'll say to you, Steve, like I mean, you were the first guy holding space in a men's circle. I guess it was probably 2020. So you're the reason why I was even inspired to keep showing up in these spaces, and it has changed my life completely. So it's always a blessing to be in a space with you and talk with you. We got to do it more.
Cool. Sounds good, man. I appreciate that.
Thanks, man.
All
Thank you.
right.
Love you so much,
You
man.
and your family take care.
Likewise.
Okay. I'll post this. Okay. See ya.
All right. See ya.
Bye.